Welcome back, Legion fans. We are excited to be back with a new comic correction. You all know how this works. We take a look at some of the worst iterations of comic books and their movies, TV shows, renegade comic book runs, their video games. If it is terrible and it is comic book related, it is going to get torn apart by the two of us, and we have a new one for you today. Today, we are going to be digging into one of, I know it's going to be a heartbreak. It's going to be a heartbreak for Greg here, but we are going to be digging into Spider-Man 3. We know, and I know you're all sitting there and you're like, we know that this is terrible. We know that this is bad.
It's the worst.
We're going to look at it from some different angles today and maybe tell you some different things that you didn't know before.
Wait, the good angles?
No, they're not good.
Oh, the bad
They're
angles.
never about to be good. Good angles, no.
No.
We're going to start with our Carnage report today.
Let's jump into it. All right, so guys, as always, we look in our Carnage report for how much money the movie made, how much money the movie cost, who was in it, what the popular reception was. So for this movie, they had a budget of $258 million. And kind of like Suicide Squad, they did well money-wise. They made $894 million, a little bit more than that. So they made their money back and more. But we know as for fans, it disappointed big time.
We know why it made that money.
Yeah,
it made that money because Spider-Man and Spider-Man 2 did
great.
well and were great.
Yeah.
So people came out in troves because they thought, oh, Spider-Man 3, it'll be great.
I did. I went out. Yeah, and the trailers.
I spent my money.
Do you remember the first trailer?
The first trailer looked amazing.
Yeah, because he jumps again, and he's got the black suit on in the mirror.
Exactly. Exactly.
And so all we thought was Venom. It's going to be Venom. Let's do this. This is great. First two were fantastic, right? Yeah, well, it wasn't so good. Casting, we got the same people back that we had before. Tobey Maguire as Spider-Man. Kirsten Dunst as Mary Jane. James Franco returned as Harry Osborn. And then we had Thomas Hayden Church as the Sandman, which, gotta say, spot on casting.
Great casting.
He was great.
Great casting. Tried to do what he could with it,
but he
wasn't given much.
He wasn't given much.
He was given sand.
And then Topher Grace. Topher Grace as Venom, which again, that was just an odd cast. I think what they were really trying to do,
so bad.
Well, they were trying to do like evil version of Tobey Maguire, evil version of Peter Parker. Which
I get that, but I mean, the man made a '70s show jump. Like, come on.
Well, I don't mind Topher Grace, but the fact of the matter is, Eddie Brock is a bruiser,
right?
And Topher Grace had
not a bruiser.
He had frosted tips.
You're right. They gave him those frosted. What was going on?
I don't
hair
know what they were
during
thinking
that
about.
time.
Well, it was the early 2000s. Anyway, popular reception came out with a 51% on Rotten Tomatoes audience, and then Metacritic. This is the last time we're going to jump on Metacritic.
I'm not doing this anymore. They don't know what they're talking about. I'm done with Metacritic. I'm done with them. They gave
6.8.
6.8.
Yeah.
6.8. I'm done with Metacritic. Don't go on Metacritic and expect to actually get an accurate scoring for a movie.
Yeah. I mean, it was lower than what they had been giving, but it's still
But that's
too
based
high.
off of 3,000 plus reviews.
Yeah.
Are you kidding me?
Yeah. Maybe those people were, I don't know.
Not
reading
Spider-Man
comic
fans.
books.
Not reading comic books. Not Spider-Man fans. Clearly,
Apparently, they definitely didn't read the Spider-Man 3 source material.
Exactly.
So, source material, we had Amazing Spider-Man number 29 was the first appearance of Venom, and they did pull some things from that. The alien symbiote idea coming down in an asteroid or coming down from space. So they pulled some things from that. Sandman's origin came in Amazing Spider-Man number 4. Very different. They completely changed his origin, completely gave him a very odd backstory, which we will talk about more when we get into the correction. And then Amazing Spider-Man number 238 was the first appearance of Hobgoblin, who has been a lot of different characters. In this case, they brought it to be Harry Osborn, which is fine. But the
look of him was weird.
Yeah, well, he ended up just being a bad Power Ranger rip-off villain. It was just bad.
So, after looking at all of that, it is time to correct. We're going to take a look at a couple of different points that we just know are not making the cut with this movie.
Okay, so the first biggest complaint I feel like that is just universal is that this movie had way too many villains.
Yeah, I truly believe this is like one of the first movies. This is the standard that sets the too many villains issue.
Yeah.
We see it come up so many different times in other movies,
Yeah.
but this is like the first time that a movie tries to do 3+ villains in it and does none of them well. They are all bad.
Yeah.
And the problem isn't that they chose the wrong villains.
Right.
The problem is that they do not actually develop any of these storylines, so you feel no actual connection to the villain. You do not care for them to win or to lose. You are just disconnected from them completely. So you have no interest in Sandman being able to get back to his family. You have no interest in the dynamic between Harry and Spider-Man and Peter Parker and him becoming Hobgoblin or Green Goblin's son or whatever they wanted to go with there. Like, it was all so rushed and it just did not play well together. And like they should have just leaned into the Hobgoblin idea. Like they didn't we know Hobgoblin. We know he's a main villain for Spider-Man. He's in the Rogues of Spider-Man, but they don't actually call him Hobgoblin. What do they call him?
They call him the New Goblin. Just New Goblin.
They just call him the New Goblin.
Like not just Green Goblin, just New Goblin. Which, in all honesty, he was the best case for their movie because we had James Franco's character in the previous two movies, and so we had gotten to know him, and they actually had a good reason, right? So he thought
but the whole amnesia thing,
that was
storyline was so weird.
Yeah, well, it's an ex machina. You know, they were like, how do we get him to join sides of Spider-Man? I guess we just make him forget that he didn't like Spider-Man.
It's just like it. And here's the thing, like, had they leaned into that storyline even more, maybe it would have worked. Maybe they could have done something like digging deeper into it. Harry starts having like really vivid and terrible flashbacks. But this whole idea of him seeing his father,
that was great. That was
and
cool.
Like
in the mirror.
It was cool because we get more of
we get
of the Goblin. We get more of William Dafoe. Like anytime we get more of William Dafoe is a great day by me.
Yeah.
And James Franco is an amazing
he can do
actor.
really well.
He can do amazing
was young
things.
Then, but
he was young.
He was earlier in his career.
Yeah, he hadn't gone to like 4 different colleges all at the same time. Really delved into his craft of becoming a method actor. He hadn't cut off a hand yet.
I don't know if it's a doctorate or a master's degree in poetry. He's actually written a whole poem book, like a book of poetry.
Oh, we gotta review some poetry.
It's terrible.
Here. It's gotta be bad.
It's just really freaky.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. No. So I think what really ruined it for me, for the New Goblin for Harry, was that they literally destroyed all of his. All the reason behind his hatred for Spider-Man in one scene. Okay, there's this one scene where his butler, comes to him and tells him that Spider-Man didn't kill his dad. And like the butler knew this all this time, and yet he allowed Harry to like grow in his hatred and his desire to defeat Spider-Man, whatever, all this time, and he could have just told him.
This butler's no Alfred.
Yeah.
That's all I'm saying here, man.
He was like, oh, by the way, your father's glider was what killed him. He killed himself. It wasn't Spider-Man. It's like, really? You didn't tell him this before he went on a killing spree trying to get Spider-Man and got half his face blown off and his amnesia and everything? Like, you didn't tell him that before? Like,
Nothing.
But that just completely ruins it because... Well, then there's no reason for him to harbor all that anger.
Right.
Because the butler should have told him.
They try so hard to essentially restart Spider-Man in the third Spider-Man movie. They're retconning the backstory for no reason.
Well, I guess what they would say, the reason that they would give is that they're trying...
The reason that they would give.
Well, here we go. The reason... I gotta try and defend him a little bit. So the reason that they would give... is that they're trying to create more of an emotional connection between Spider-Man and Sandman, right? So you were saying before that we never really got a chance to really get to know Sandman, and we never got a chance to really see how they, came together, why there was an importance between the two of them, other than just like a common criminal or this guy trying to get back to his family. So they tried to make an emotional connection by saying, well, no, it wasn't the guy that Spider-Man stopped that killed Uncle Ben. It was Sandman that killed Uncle Ben.
Right.
And it was just like, I get why they were doing it, because they were trying to make Sandman a more integral character, but I also don't get it because they completely negated everything that Spider-Man went through in the first movie.
Exactly.
And the second movie of all his guilt. Because he went and he acted out of rage, and he acted out of not thinking and taking the responsibility that Uncle Ben called him to. He acted out of that, and then he had to live with that consequence, and that's what made him into Spider-Man. And now they just removed that, and we're like, well, actually, that guy was just the guy that robbed a bank or robbed the wrestling people.
It defeats the whole statement of with great power comes great responsibility.
Yeah, I mean, still he killed a guy, like, so there's still that consequence, but it wasn't as near and dear because it wasn't about Uncle Ben.
None of it was about, like, everything in this movie seems tangential to, like, actually being about Spider-Man. Like there it's all of these side connections that are not really like his fault. So Hobgoblin is angry because his dad killed himself.
Right, and the butler didn't tell him.
Sandman is the one who actually killed his Uncle Ben.
Right.
And so that's the one we should actually be focused on.
Yeah.
And then finally, we get Venom.
We get just thrown into the fact that Brock has been a photographer there.
Right.
Kind of rivaling, Peter Parker's photography skills, which is true in the comics, right? That they're rivals at the Daily Bugle. But he just kind of appears. And we
shows
don't really,
up out of nowhere.
It's the same with Gwen Stacy. She also just kind of appears and shares a kiss with, which is actually Bryce Dallas Howard. Or is that her name? Bryce Dallas Howard? Am I right? I am right. It's Bryce Dallas Howard. It's Bryce Dallas Howard as Gwen Stacy, which is ridiculous. She was like nothing at that point. She had not done like anything.
That's true.
But she's in The Help, and she's in Jurassic World, and she's kind of blown up since then. It's weird. Like, they just threw people in and changed backgrounds for no reason.
And the showing up of Gwen Stacy at this point in the storyline makes no sense.
Right, because she came before Mary Jane in the comics. And then she died before Mary Jane even really became a thing.
Exactly.
Yeah,
none of the storylines match up. We're trying. It's like we say it every time, but it's like we're going out of business sale.
Yeah.
But it's like they had to this is the last one. We're gonna shove all of the Spider-Man stories into this Spider-Man movie. The director hasn't done their research, hasn't done the work on understanding the source material well enough. So they just kind of do this hodgepodge of what they think would be a good movie instead of developing a good comic book movie.
Right.
Like, there is a difference between what your stereotypical arc of a good movie would be versus your comic book arc that needs to be different.
Yeah, well, this wasn't a good movie either, though.
That's fair. That's fair. But partially due to all of the reasons that we just said.
Oh, it's true. And you know what? With all this confusion going on of his backstory going through all these changes and all these villains coming in all over the place, and it's no wonder he had kind of like a midlife crisis kind of.
He didn't have a midlife crisis.
Well, that brings up our last little bit.
He didn't have a midlife crisis.
Well, it was kind of like an emo crisis.
He went full emo. My man went full emo.
My favorite is when he first starts getting taken over, and he looks in the mirror and he's just like, let me just put my hair over my eye.
He didn't go normal emo.
No.
He went jazz emo.
Yeah, with the eyeliner and everything.
Eyeliner, dancing in the street. I'm going to mess up my hair because my world is so dark.
Yeah.
So I'm going to use my hair to cover my face.
That's what the symbiote does.
That's what the symbiote causes him to just become a jazz emo kid. Yeah, that's what the ladies like, man.
Oh, it does that. Well, that's the other thing is that
it makes no sense.
In the comics, the Venom, the symbiote does enhance like your confidence
Right.
and your like appeal, and,
Charisma.
like, yeah, it makes you just a much more kind of alpha character.
That wasn't more alpha.
Well, but that's the thing is that like
they like
all the
half
women,
alpha'd him.
but all the women in the scenes, they're all like disgusted by him.
It makes no
Like
sense.
it's not even like he's
it's supposed to be more alpha, more appealing, more more
and they're like,
charismatic,
get
and
away.
they're like,
you're just Tobey Maguire with bad hair.
Tobey Maguire with eyeliner and black hair.
Yeah.
What comic material has us do that? That makes no sense.
Yeah, I mean, I guess he was going with like the conflicted on the inside, and emo people are conflicted. I guess.
But why
I don't
didn't
know.
that then happen? So, like if that's the case, the exact same thing should have happened to Brock.
Right, and he went the real way.
He went the real way.
Yeah, he got much more arrogant, and because in the comics, Spider-Man ends up like, or Peter Parker ends up like ruining a lot of his relationships and distancing people from him.
Right.
But because his temper gets out of control.
Right.
And he's so confident that he like thinks he's better than everybody else.
Exactly.
And it was very different.
Instead of making it that the symbiote enhanced their confidence,
right?
It almost made it though that the symbiote preyed on their fears. So like instead it seemed like because he was sad and depressed at that time,
it amplified that.
Yeah,
maybe.
And for Eddie Brock, he was angry and ticked off, so it amplified that.
That's a good observation.
No, thank you.
You're
thank
welcome.
you. I kind of it's like I do this, but that makes no sense. That isn't what Venom does. It enhances confidence across the board. It enhances that sense of bravado across the board. It's not a enhancing of whatever you're feeling at that time.
Well, maybe Tobey Maguire thinks that's confidence.
Oh my gosh! If Tobey Maguire thinks that's confidence, we're in.
I mean,
trouble
technically, he was confident
because
he did the things.
Fell off after that movie.
Yeah.
Tobey Maguire, where has he been?
I don't know.
Where have you seen Tobey Maguire since Spider-Man 3?
He was in The Boss Baby. He was adult Tim. Okay, so don't knock Tobey Maguire's career after Spider-Man 3. He was also in Spider-Man 3, the video game. He did the voice. All right, guys, now it's time for the verdict, where we go through how we would fix a movie like this.
I don't even know how you fix one like this.
Sit back and learn. All right, so how you would fix this movie is just remove the villains that don't need to be there. So honestly, all I would do is I would get rid of Sandman, I would get rid of Venom, and I would build on the character that you've been building on, which is Harry Osborn, and creating him into an actual Hobgoblin that would be something we're proud of. All right, get rid of the fact the butler knows about how he died. The butler doesn't have to know. Get rid of that fact and allow Harry to stew in that wonderful guilt that grows into the Hobgoblin. Allow him to play off William Dafoe and become the ultimate bad guy here at the end. And then maybe tease Venom in the asteroid or the comet or whatever at the end of the movie as kind of a stinger to think that if we get a Spider-Man 4, we can have a black suit Spider-Man. You don't need to have the black suit Spider-Man in this movie. Or actually, you know what's even better? Have the black suit Spider-Man come in the third act and give Spider-Man the ability to stop the Hobgoblin, defeat him, and then allow it to set up the fact that Spider-Man likes this new suit, but it could have some unwanted side effects to it.
I like that.
That's
I would watch that movie.
Yeah.
I would watch that one. You could even take it a step further and start setting up for your Sinister Six after this, because Hobgoblin gets defeated. You can set up where do you go to next. You start building towards a Sinister Six with the next trilogy. All right, Legion fans, thanks for watching. Please make sure to like and subscribe right down below. Check out some of these other videos that we've got all over in these different places. Also, if you love our content, check us out on Patreon. We've got some really great special videos on there and some other different ways to get involved with Legion. Have a great one.
We'll see you next time.